The morning light filtered through my kitchen window, casting long shadows across the marble countertop where I stood, steam rising from my coffee mug. The familiar aroma of French roast filled my nostrils, but something felt different that Tuesday morning in November. The air carried an unusual chill, not just from the approaching winter, but from something I couldn't quite name yet. My hands wrapped around the warm ceramic, seeking comfort from what would soon become the last peaceful moment I'd have for months. I was stirring honey into my coffee when my phone buzzed against the granite surface. The vibration sent a sharp, metallic sound through the quiet kitchen. Sarah's name appeared on the screen, my sister-in-law calling at 7:15 in the morning. This was unusual. Sarah never called before 9, claiming morning conversations were reserved for emergencies and bad news. My stomach tightened as I swiped to answer. "Emma, you need to see this." Her voice cracked through the speaker, high-pitched and trembling. No greeting, no small talk. Just raw panic transmitted through the phone lines. "See what?" "Sarah, what's wrong?" I set down my mug with a clink that echoed through the empty house. Michael had already left for his accounting firm, and the kids wouldn't be up for another hour. The news. Channel 7. They're talking about Dad's will, about the inheritance, about everything we discussed at Sunday dinner. Everything, Emma. Someone told them everything. The words hit me like ice water. I fumbled for the remote control, my fingers suddenly clumsy and cold. The television screen flickered to life, displaying the morning news anchor's perfectly polished smile. But it was the banner scrolling across the bottom that made my knees weak. Local business family's inheritance dispute revealed, millions at stake in bitter family feud. My father had passed away just 6 months ago, leaving behind a construction empire worth $12 million and a will that had surprised everyone. The distribution wasn't what any of us expected, and our Sunday family dinners had become tense negotiations about fairness, need, and what Dad really intended. These were private conversations, held in hushed tones around my dining room table, with only family present. The anchor's voice filled my kitchen, each word striking like a physical blow. According to sources close to the family, tensions have been brewing since patriarch Robert Chin's death in May. The will reportedly divides the construction company unequally among his 3 children, with the eldest daughter receiving controlling interest while her younger siblings receive smaller stakes. They knew about the 60% controlling share left to me. They knew about Tom's 25% and Sarah's 15%. They knew about our arguments over whether the division was fair, about Sarah's tears when she learned she'd received the smallest portion, about Tom's anger over not getting equal shares despite working in the business for 15 years. "Emma, are you watching this?" Sarah's voice brought me back to the moment. They know everything. They know about Mom's medical bills, about Tom's gambling debts, about your mortgage problems. How is this possible? The reporter was now describing intimate details of our family's financial struggles. Mom's Alzheimer's care cost $8,000 monthly. Tom had racked up $43,000 in gambling debts that Sarah discovered only after Dad's funeral. My mortgage was 3 months behind because Michael's accounting firm had lost several major clients during the recession. These weren't public records. These were secrets shared in whispered conversations, private admissions made in moments of vulnerability. I sank into the kitchen chair, the leather creaking under my weight. The morning sun that had felt so warm moments ago now seemed harsh and exposing, highlighting every dust mote floating in the air like tiny accusers. My coffee had grown cold, the honey settling into a sticky layer at the bottom of the mug. Someone in the family talked, I whispered into the phone. Someone we trusted. But who? It was just us at Sunday dinner. You, me, Tom, and Derek. The kids were upstairs playing video games. Derek. My brother-in-law, Sarah's husband of 8 years. The man who'd bounced my nephew on his knee while we discussed family finances. The man who'd helped me move furniture after Dad's funeral, who'd brought casseroles when I was too grief-stricken to cook. Derek, who worked in marketing and understood the power of information. I'm coming over, Sarah said. We need to figure this out. After hanging up, I stood in my kitchen, listening to the house settle around me. The refrigerator hummed. The coffee maker clicked as it finished its cycle. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Patterson walking her ancient cocker spaniel, their footsteps crunching through the fallen leaves. Normal sounds of a normal morning, but nothing felt normal anymore. The news segment continued, and I forced myself to watch. They showed file footage of Dad's construction sites, aerial shots of the buildings his company had erected across the city. The reporter mentioned specific dollar amounts, project timelines, and business relationships that weren't in any public database. They knew about the Henderson Mall project that was 3 months behind schedule. They knew about the dispute with the city over permit delays. They knew about the loan Dad had personally guaranteed just weeks before his heart attack. My phone rang again. This time it was Tom, my younger brother, calling from his truck. I could hear the diesel engine rumbling in the background, the sounds of a construction site coming to life. What the hell is going on? My foreman just called me. Says he saw our family on the morning news. Says they're talking about Dad's money in our business. Tom's voice carried the exhaustion of someone who'd been working construction since he was 16. Even at 35, he sounded older, weathered by physical labor and responsibility. He'd taken over day-to-day operations of the company when Dad's health started failing, working 12-hour days to keep projects on schedule. Tom, they know everything. About the will, about Mom's expenses, about your debts. Everything we talked about Sunday. Silence on the other end, except for the rumbling engine and distant sound of pneumatic tools. When Tom finally spoke, his voice was different, harder. Derek was asking a lot of questions Sunday night. After you and Sarah went to the kitchen to get dessert. He wanted to know about the Henderson project, about our cash flow, about whether we'd have to sell equipment to cover Mom's care. I remembered that moment. Sarah and I had spent 20 minutes in the kitchen, discussing Mom's latest doctor's visit and arranging her care schedule. We'd left the men in the dining room with their coffee and Dad's old photo albums. Derek had seemed genuinely interested in the family history, asking about buildings Dad had constructed in the 1980s and 90s. He said he was thinking about writing something for the company newsletter, Tom continued. Said it would be nice to honor Dad's legacy with a story about his biggest projects. I thought it was sweet, you know? Thoughtful. The company newsletter. Derek worked for a marketing firm that produced internal communications for various businesses. He would know exactly how to gather information without seeming intrusive. He would know which questions to ask to get the most revealing answers. He would know how to make people comfortable enough to share private details. My hands were shaking as I poured the cold coffee down the sink. The brown liquid swirled down the drain, carrying with it the remnants of my peaceful morning. Steam rose from the warm metal basin, fogging the window above the sink. Outside, the world continued its normal rhythm, unaware that my family's private pain was being broadcast to thousands of strangers. Tom, we need to meet. All of us. Except Derek. What about Sarah? She won't want to believe this. I understood his concern. Sarah adored Derek. They'd met at a charity fundraiser where Derek was handling publicity for his marketing firm. Sarah had been volunteering at the registration table, and Derek had charmed her with stories about the interesting people he'd met through his work. She often bragged about his ability to make anyone feel comfortable, to get people talking about their lives and dreams. Now that gift for extracting information took on a sinister cast. The doorbell rang, its familiar chime echoing through the house. Sarah had arrived faster than expected, which meant she'd been calling from her car, not her house. I opened the front door to find my sister-in-law standing on the porch, her face pale and streaked with tears. She wore the same clothes from yesterday, her usual attention to appearance abandoned in crisis. Emma, I've been thinking during the drive over. Derek was on his phone a lot yesterday evening. He said it was work, but he was in the garage, and he was speaking quietly. I could hear him through the window, but I couldn't make out words. We sat at the kitchen table where Sunday dinners had become exercises in family diplomacy. Sarah's hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. The morning light streaming through the window highlighted the worry lines around her eyes, aging her beyond her 32 years. What exactly did you hear? Murmuring. And he said numbers. I definitely heard him say 12 million, and then 25%. At the time, I assumed he was discussing some client project, but now the pieces were forming a picture neither of us wanted to see. Derek had access to all our family information. He understood marketing and publicity. He worked with media contacts through his job. And he had been asking unusually detailed questions about our family's financial situation. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Saw the news. So sorry about your family's situation. If you want to tell your side of the story, I'm available to listen. Jennifer Martinez, Channel 7. Sarah, look at this. I showed her the message. They're already trying to get more information. Sarah's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, realization, and finally, a deep, gut-wrenching sadness. She understood what this meant, what Derek's betrayal would cost not just our family, but her marriage. I need to confront him, she whispered. I need to ask him directly. Not yet. Let's meet with Tom first. Let's figure out exactly what Derek knows and how he could have learned it. We need to be strategic about this. The next hour felt like underwater movement, everything slow and distorted. Sarah and I called Tom, arranging to meet at his apartment instead of the family construction office. We couldn't risk being seen together publicly, not with reporters potentially watching our movements. Tom lived in a converted warehouse downtown, a space that reflected his practical nature and construction background. Exposed brick walls, industrial lighting, and furniture built from reclaimed wood created an atmosphere of honest functionality. When we arrived, Tom had already prepared coffee and laid out every family document he could find: Dad's will, insurance papers, medical records, and financial statements. I've been thinking about this all morning, Tom said, his voice carrying the weight of betrayal. Derek has been to every family gathering since Dad got sick. He was here when we discussed selling the lake house to pay for Mom's care. He was at the hospital when we talked about Dad's final wishes. He's heard every private conversation we've had about money, about family tensions, about our fears. Sarah sat on Tom's couch, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her voice was barely audible when she spoke. He asked me last week if I thought the inheritance division was fair. He said he wanted to understand family dynamics because his own family never discussed money openly. I thought he was being supportive, helping me process my feelings. The afternoon sun slanted through Tom's large windows, casting long shadows across the brick walls. The industrial space that usually felt open and airy now seemed to press in around us, heavy with the weight of our realization. Outside, we could hear the sounds of the city, traffic humming, construction equipment from a nearby project, the distant wail of sirens. We need to know for sure, I said finally. We can't just assume, even though everything points to Derek. Sarah, you're going to have to check his computer, his phone records, his recent contacts. I can't spy on my husband. Sarah, if Derek sold our family's private information to the media, then he's already destroyed the trust that makes a marriage work. You're not spying. You're discovering whether your marriage is built on lies. Tom leaned forward, his work-calloused hands clasped between his knees. Em's right, Sarah. And it's not just about your marriage anymore. This affects the business, Mom's care, all of our reputations. If Derek did this, we need to know how much damage he's caused and whether he's planning to release more information. The thought of more revelations made my stomach clench. What else did Derek know? Had Sarah mentioned my struggles with depression after Dad's death? Did he know about Tom's brief separation from his wife 3 years ago? Had he overheard our discussions about potentially selling the business if we couldn't manage the debt and family obligations? Sarah's phone rang, the sound sharp and intrusive in the quiet apartment. Derek's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer it, Tom said immediately. I have to. If I don't answer, he'll know something's wrong. Sarah's voice changed when she accepted the call, becoming artificially bright and casual. Hi, honey. Yes, I'm at Emma's. We're just talking about the news story. I know, it's terrible that our private business is being discussed publicly. We could hear Derek's voice through the speaker, concerned and sympathetic. He was asking if there was anything he could do to help, offering to use his media contacts to try to limit further coverage. His performance was flawless, the caring husband worried about his wife's family crisis. After Sarah hung up, we sat in silence. The evidence was circumstantial but overwhelming. Derek had access, opportunity, and expertise. He had asked leading questions and shown unusual interest in family financial details. He worked in marketing and had media connections. And now he was offering to help manage the media response to a crisis he had likely created. "I'm going home," Sarah said finally. "I'm going to search his computer and phone. I'm going to find proof." That evening, I sat in my own living room, watching the local news repeat the morning story with additional details. They now knew about specific construction projects, about Dad's business relationships with city officials, about family disagreements that had never left our dining room. The reporter mentioned that family members had declined to comment, making us sound secretive and guilty. Michael came home to find me staring at the television, the remote control clutched in my hand like a weapon. His usually cheerful demeanor faded when he saw my expression. "Emma, what's wrong? You look like someone died." I explained the situation, watching Michael's face change as he understood the implications. Michael had always liked Derek, appreciating his easy conversation and apparent devotion to Sarah. They'd bonded over their shared interest in financial planning and investment strategies. "Derek knows about our mortgage problems," Michael said slowly. "Remember last month when we discussed refinancing options at Sunday dinner? Derek offered to introduce us to a commercial lender he knew through work. Another piece of private information that had been shared in trust, now potentially fodder for future news stories. Our financial struggles weren't just embarrassing, they could affect Michael's accounting business if clients believed he couldn't manage his own finances." The house felt different that night, as if Derek's betrayal had infected the spaces where we'd welcomed him as family. The dining room where we'd shared meals and confidences now seemed violated. The living room where he'd played with our children felt tainted by his deception. I couldn't sleep, my mind cycling through every interaction we'd had with Derek over the past 8 years. How many of our conversations had been intelligence gathering? How long had he been planning to sell our secrets? Was this the first time, or had he been feeding information to reporters throughout our relationship? At 2 a.m, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, "Found something. Coming over first thing in the morning." The rest of the night passed in restless fragments. I dozed fitfully, waking every hour to check the clock. The house creaked and settled around me, normal sounds made ominous by my racing thoughts. Outside, wind rustled through the oak trees, their bare branches scraping against the roof with sounds like fingernails on glass. Dawn came gray and cold, the sky heavy with threatening clouds. I was already dressed and caffeinated when Sarah arrived, looking like she hadn't slept at all. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes were red from crying. "I found email correspondence," she said without preamble. "Derek has been in contact with Jennifer Martinez from Channel 7 for 3 weeks. He pitched the story idea to her, calling it a compelling human interest piece about family dynamics and inheritance disputes." Sarah's voice was mechanical, as if emotion would shatter her ability to speak. She handed me printed copies of email exchanges between Derek and the reporter. The messages revealed a calculated betrayal that was worse than I'd imagined. Derek had presented himself as a concerned family member worried about the destructive effects of money on relationships. He positioned our family struggle as a cautionary tale about the importance of clear estate planning and open communication. He'd made our pain sound like a public service announcement. "There's more," Sarah continued. "He sent her a detailed family tree with everyone's financial information. Our debts, our assets, our personal struggles. He even included photos from family gatherings. The photos were what broke my composure. Derek had taken pictures at Dad's funeral reception, capturing moments of grief and vulnerability. He'd photographed family documents during Sunday dinners, using his phone camera to document the papers we'd spread across the table during financial discussions. He'd treated our trust like a research project. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I know how much you love him." Loved him. Past tense. Her voice carried a finality that surprised me. "I called a divorce attorney this morning. I'm filing papers today." The swiftness of her decision revealed the depth of her pain. Sarah wasn't impulsive, she considered decisions carefully, weighing options and consequences. For her to move this quickly meant Derek's betrayal had shattered something fundamental in her worldview. We spent the morning developing a plan. Tom would handle business aspects, working with our corporate attorney to limit damage to the construction company. Sarah would manage her divorce while gathering evidence of Derek's deception. I would serve as family spokesperson, controlling our narrative as much as possible. The irony wasn't lost on me that we were strategizing like a marketing campaign, using Derek's professional tactics against him. That afternoon, Channel 7 aired a follow-up story with additional details about our family's financial situation. They knew about specific medical expenses for Mom's care, about insurance disputes related to Dad's final hospitalization, about a potential buyer who'd expressed interest in purchasing the construction company. Information that had been discussed only in the most private family meetings. My phone rang constantly, reporters wanting interviews, neighbors expressing concern, business associates asking about the company's stability. Each call felt like another violation, strangers demanding access to pain that should have remained private. The worst call came from Mom's care facility. The administrator was concerned about the media attention and wanted to discuss whether the facility was still the appropriate environment for Mom's care. They were politely asking us to move her, worried that media presence would disturb other residents. This was the cost of Derek's betrayal, extending beyond embarrassment into real consequences for the people we loved most. Mom, already confused by Alzheimer's, would have to adjust to a new environment because her son-in-law had sold the family's secrets for whatever price reporters pay for private information. That evening, Sarah returned to her house to confront Derek. Tom and I waited at my kitchen table, phones ready in case she needed support. The autumn wind rattled the windows, and early darkness had settled over the neighborhood like a heavy blanket. Sarah's call came at 8:30. Her voice was strange, flat, and emotionless. He confessed everything. He said the story was going to come out anyway because of the business disputes, and he wanted to make sure our side was represented fairly. He said he was protecting us by controlling the narrative. The audacity of Derek's justification was breathtaking. He'd convinced himself that betraying our trust was an act of protection, that selling our secrets was a form of damage control. He's been in contact with 3 different media outlets, Sarah continued. Channel 7 was just the first. He has meetings scheduled with a newspaper reporter and someone from a radio station that covers local business news. 3 outlets. Derek had turned our family tragedy into a media tour, shopping our pain to the highest bidder or widest audience. Sarah, are you safe? Do you want us to come over? I'm already gone. I packed a bag and left. I'm staying at Mom's house tonight. Derek can live with the reporters he invited into our lives. Mom's house, where Dad had lived until 6 months ago, where the furniture still smelled like his cologne and coffee cups still bore the rings from his morning routine. Sarah was seeking refuge in the physical spaces of our childhood, returning to the last place that felt safe and untainted. The next morning brought a new humiliation. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about our family's inheritance battle, complete with a large photo of Dad's construction company headquarters. The article went deeper than the television coverage, detailing specific legal documents and family conflicts that required intimate knowledge of our private discussions. Tom called an emergency meeting at his apartment. When we arrived, we found him pacing like a caged animal, his usual calm composure cracked by fury and frustration. They quoted Dad's private letters, he said, holding up the newspaper. Letters he wrote to each of us explaining his will decisions. Letters we've never shown anyone except Derek. The letters were Dad's attempt to help us understand his reasoning, his way of expressing love while acknowledging the difficult choices he'd made. They contained his hopes for our futures, his concerns about our individual challenges, his dreams for keeping the family business together despite the complications of inheritance. Seeing those private thoughts reduced to newspaper quotes felt like desecrating Dad's grave. We need a lawyer, I said. Not just for the business, but for invasion of privacy, for whatever legal protection we can get. I already called one, Tom replied. She says our options are limited because Derek had legitimate access to the information as a family member. Unless we can prove he stole documents or recorded conversations without consent, his right to speak about family matters is protected. The legal reality was as crushing as the emotional betrayal. Derek's intimate access to our lives, the trust we'd placed in him as family, became the weapon he used against us. The law couldn't protect us from someone who'd been invited into our most private moments. Sarah arrived looking like a ghost of herself, pale and thin after 3 days of crisis. She'd spent the previous evening with Mom, sitting in the familiar living room and trying to explain why family pictures were appearing in newspapers. Mom's Alzheimer's made the conversation both easier and more heartbreaking. She couldn't retain the details of Derek's betrayal, but she could sense Sarah's distress. "I'd been thinking about timing," Sarah said. Derek started asking detailed questions about family finances right after Dad's diagnosis became terminal. "He's been planning this for months, maybe longer." The premeditation made Derek's actions even more sinister. This wasn't an impulsive decision or a moment of weakness. He'd systematically gathered intelligence while comforting us through our grief, building a comprehensive dossier of family secrets while playing the role of supportive brother-in-law. He calculated the optimal moment to release the information, Tom added. Right when inheritance distributions were becoming public through probate court, maximizing the story's impact and credibility. Derek had applied professional marketing strategies to our family crisis, timing the revelation for maximum media attention and public interest. He'd treated our pain like a product launch, considering market conditions and audience engagement. That afternoon, Channel 7 aired what they called an exclusive follow-up interview with Derek himself. We watched in horrified fascination as Sarah's husband positioned himself as a whistleblower exposing family dysfunction, a concerned outsider who'd tried to mediate disputes before reluctantly sharing his story with the public. Derek wore a somber suit and spoke in measured tones about the destructive effects of money on family relationships. He expressed concern for Mom's welfare and hopes that transparency might help the family heal. He presented himself as reluctantly breaking his silence to serve the greater good. The performance was masterful and nauseating. Sarah left the room halfway through the interview, unable to watch her husband's public character assassination of her family. I could hear her crying in the bathroom, deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from somewhere beyond heartbreak. The interview revealed Derek's strategy: position himself as the reasonable voice in an unreasonable situation, the objective observer reporting on family dysfunction. He'd given himself plausible deniability while maximizing damage to our reputation. When Sarah returned, her face was swollen from crying, but her voice was steady. "I want to fight back. I want to tell our real story, expose Derek for what he is." "Sarah, that's exactly what he wants," Tom warned. "More family conflict, more drama, more content for his media friends. The best thing we can do is stay quiet and let this die down." But Sarah's anger had crystallized into determination. Derek had spent months manipulating her, gathering intelligence while pretending to love her. She'd been living with an enemy who'd shared her bed while planning her family's destruction. "He doesn't get to control our narrative anymore. We're going to show people who Derek really is." The next week became a careful campaign to counter Derek's story without feeding the media frenzy. Sarah worked with a different reporter, one who specialized in human interest stories rather than sensational conflict. Instead of defending against Derek's accusations, she focused on Dad's legacy, the construction company's community contributions, and our family's commitment to caring for Mom despite financial challenges. The strategy worked better than expected. Public opinion began shifting as people learned about Dad's charitable work, about the affordable housing projects his company had built, about the scholarships he'd funded for construction trade students. Our family's story became more complex than Derek's narrative of money-driven conflict. Derek's media tour began backfiring when reporters started questioning his motives. Why was he speaking for a family that hadn't authorized him to do so? What gave him the right to reveal private medical and financial information? His position became increasingly uncomfortable as journalists realized they'd been manipulated by someone with his own agenda. The breakthrough came when Sarah discovered Derek's financial records during divorce proceedings. He'd received payments from media outlets for his exclusive information, turning our family's secrets into a profitable side business. The caring brother-in-law who'd claimed to be protecting us had been selling our pain for cash. Sarah's divorce attorney leaked this information to the same reporter who'd originally run Derek's story. The follow-up article revealed Derek's financial motive, destroying his credibility and exposing his betrayal as simple greed rather than concerned family intervention. Derek's marketing firm fired him immediately, unwilling to employ someone who demonstrated such ethical flexibility with confidential information. His professional reputation crumbled as quickly as his marriage, leaving him isolated and unemployed. But the damage to our family was already done. Mom had to be moved to a different care facility after reporters repeatedly tried to interview her during her confusion. The construction company lost 2 major contracts when clients worried about negative publicity affecting their own reputations. Our personal relationships became guarded and suspicious, everyone wondering what private information might be used against them. The financial cost was substantial, but the emotional price was higher. Trust, once broken, rebuilt slowly and incompletely. Family gatherings became careful exercises in limiting shared information. We learned to love each other at a distance, protecting ourselves from future betrayal by remaining partially closed even to those we cared about most. 6 months later, Derek's prediction proved partially true. The media attention did help our family heal, but not in the way he'd intended. Facing external pressure forced us to strengthen our bonds and clarify our priorities. We learned to communicate more directly about difficult topics, removing the secrecy that had made us vulnerable to manipulation. Tom took over full management of the construction company, using the media attention to highlight the business's positive community impact. Sarah rebuilt her life with remarkable strength, using her experience to help other women recognize emotional manipulation in relationships. I learned to protect my family's privacy while maintaining openness with people who'd earned our trust. Derek disappeared from our lives as completely as if he'd never existed. Sarah received divorce papers signed without contest, suggesting he was eager to avoid further legal scrutiny. He'd achieved his goal of getting our story into the media, but at the cost of everything else he'd claimed to value. The autumn when our crisis began had been unusually cold, with early frost and bitter winds that stripped leaves from trees weeks ahead of schedule. The following autumn felt different, warmer and more gradual, allowing time for adjustment and growth. We'd learned that not everything is what it seems, that trust must be carefully protected, and that family loyalty is precious exactly because it can be destroyed by those who understand its value. Standing in my kitchen on a morning exactly 1 year after Derek's betrayal first appeared on television, I made coffee and watched steam rise from my mug. The familiar ritual felt peaceful again, unmarked by the anxiety that had defined so many previous mornings. Outside, Mrs. Patterson walked her ancient Cocker Spaniel through fallen leaves, their footsteps creating the comfortable sounds of ordinary life. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Coffee later? I have good news to share. Good news felt revolutionary after a year of crisis management and recovery. I responded immediately, yes. Can't wait to hear. The morning light filtering through my kitchen window carried the same golden quality it had possessed before Derek's betrayal changed everything. But I was different now, more careful but also more appreciative of genuine relationships and honest communication. The experience had been devastating and educational in equal measure. Later that day, Sarah shared her good news. She'd been offered a position as victim advocate with a domestic violence organization, helping women recognize and escape emotional manipulation. Her experience with Derek's systematic deception had given her insights that would help other women identify similar patterns before they caused irreparable damage. I'm going to turn Derek's betrayal into something useful, she told me over coffee. His manipulation taught me how these predators operate. Now I can teach other women what to watch for. Tom's construction company had not only survived the media scrutiny but expanded its operations, using the public attention to showcase the quality work Dad had always insisted upon. The business philosophy Dad had instilled, honesty and excellence in all projects, proved more valuable than any marketing campaign Derek could have designed. Mom's new care facility specialized in Alzheimer's patients, providing better medical support and social activities than her previous placement. The forced move, traumatic at the time, had resulted in improved care and a more stimulating environment. Sometimes damage leads to better outcomes, though the path between crisis and improvement is rarely visible while walking it. The letters Dad had written to explain his will decisions, the private thoughts Derek had sold to newspapers, became treasured family documents after the media attention faded. We framed copies and placed them in our homes, daily reminders of Dad's love and wisdom. Derek's violation of those letters had been painful, but sharing Dad's words with a broader audience had also honored his memory in ways we hadn't anticipated. The inheritance disputes that had seemed so important during those tense Sunday dinners resolved themselves naturally as we learned to prioritize family relationships over financial arrangements. Tom's dedication to the business earned him increased respect and responsibility. Sarah's courage in leaving Derek and rebuilding her life demonstrated strength that money couldn't measure. My role as family spokesperson had evolved into genuine leadership during crisis. Derek's betrayal had taught us that family loyalty is both fragile and resilient, easily broken by selfish motives but capable of growing stronger when tested by external pressure. We'd learned to distinguish between people who care about us and people who care about what we can provide them. The media attention Derek had orchestrated eventually faded, replaced by newer scandals and more current tragedies. Public memory is short, and family drama lacks the staying power of political corruption or celebrity misbehavior. But the lessons we'd learned from the experience remained permanent: trust carefully, communicate directly, and value privacy as a form of protection rather than secrecy. Winter approached again, bringing shorter days and colder temperatures. But this winter felt different from the previous year's harsh season. We'd survived Derek's betrayal and emerged as a more honest, more connected family. The crisis had burned away pretense and forced us to rely on genuine affection rather than polite social forms. Sarah's divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in November, exactly 1 year after Derek's first media appearance. She called me from the courthouse steps, her voice bright with relief and possibility. "It's over, Emma. All of it. I'm free to start again." Freedom after betrayal feels different from ordinary liberty. It carries the weight of experience and the lightness of escaped danger simultaneously. Sarah had learned to recognize manipulation, to value honesty over charm, to trust her instincts when something felt wrong. Derek had vanished from public view, his media connections apparently unwilling to associate with someone whose credibility had been so thoroughly destroyed. His marketing career was finished, his reputation permanently damaged by his willingness to exploit family trust for personal gain. But Derek's disappearance didn't erase the changes his betrayal had created in our family dynamics. We'd learned to be more direct about difficulties, more protective of sensitive information, and more appreciative of people who demonstrated consistent loyalty over time. The construction company's holiday party that December felt celebratory in ways previous gatherings hadn't achieved. Tom gave a speech honoring Dad's legacy and acknowledging the challenges the business had overcome during the previous year. He didn't mention Derek by name, but everyone understood the reference to external pressures that had tested our commitment to family values. Sarah attended the party alone, confident and comfortable in her independence. She'd lost weight during the divorce proceedings, but her face had regained color and animation. Freedom suited her, and she'd begun dating a teacher who appreciated her intelligence and emotional strength without trying to extract private information for personal advantage. I watched my family around the party tables, noting how Derek's absence felt like relief rather than loss. We'd adjusted to life without his presence, discovering that genuine family connections don't require the addition of manipulative personalities to feel complete. The Christmas season brought its own healing rituals. We decorated Mom's new room at the care facility, hanging familiar ornaments and playing her favorite carols. Her memory problems meant she couldn't fully understand what had happened with Derek, but she could sense our renewed closeness and stability. On Christmas morning, we gathered at Tom's apartment for gift exchanges and breakfast. The industrial space felt warmer with family laughter and the smell of coffee and bacon. We'd established new traditions to replace old ones, creating fresh memories uncontaminated by Derek's presence. Sarah gave me a framed photo from Dad's construction company, showing him at a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a low-income housing project. His smile was genuine and proud, representing the values he'd tried to instill in his children. The photo represented everything Derek's manipulation had tried to obscure: our family's commitment to community service and ethical business practices. "I thought you should have this for your office," Sarah said. "To remember what really matters when people try to distract us with gossip and rumors." The photo now sits on my desk, a daily reminder that public opinion matters less than personal integrity, that family loyalty is precious exactly because it's rare, and that some betrayals ultimately strengthen rather than destroy the relationships they're intended to damage. Derek's prediction that transparency would help our family heal had proven accurate, though not in the way he'd intended. The forced honesty about our financial struggles and personal challenges had eliminated the polite pretenses that had sometimes created distance between us. We'd learned to discuss difficult topics directly rather than avoiding them until they became crisis points. The new year brought opportunities for fresh starts and renewed commitments. Tom expanded the construction business into environmentally sustainable building practices, honoring Dad's memory while adapting to changing industry standards. Sarah enrolled in graduate school to formalize her victim advocacy training. I took a position with a nonprofit organization that helped families navigate elder care challenges, using our experience with Mom's situation to assist other families. Derek's betrayal had been devastating and educational simultaneously, teaching us about resilience, the importance of careful trust, and the difference between people who love us and people who use us. The lessons were expensive but valuable, changing how we approached relationships and evaluated character in others. Spring arrived early that year, bringing warm temperatures and early flowers. The construction company won a major contract to build a community center, a project that would showcase the quality work Dad had always insisted upon. The media attention Derek had generated, intended to damage our reputation, had actually introduced our business to potential clients who valued integrity over publicity. Mom's condition stabilized at the new care facility, surrounded by better medical support and more engaging activities. Her room looked out over a garden where residents could watch seasonal changes and remember better times. The forced move, traumatic when it occurred, had provided better care than her previous placement. Sarah met someone new, a widowed teacher whose own experience with loss had taught him to value honesty and emotional maturity over superficial charm. Their relationship developed slowly, built on genuine compatibility rather than manipulative tactics. Sarah's experience with Derek had trained her to recognize authentic affection and avoid people who seemed too interested in private information. The anniversary of Derek's first media appearance passed quietly, unmarked by family drama or public attention. We'd learned to value privacy as protection rather than secrecy, sharing our lives carefully with people who demonstrated genuine concern for our welfare. Derek's name rarely came up in family conversations anymore. His betrayal had become historical fact rather than current pain, something that had happened to us rather than something still affecting our daily lives. Time had healed most wounds, leaving only the valuable lessons about trust and family loyalty. The construction company celebrated its 40th anniversary that summer, marking 4 decades of community service and quality workmanship. The media coverage was positive, focusing on Dad's legacy and the company's continued commitment to ethical business practices. Derek's attempt to damage our reputation had backfired completely, introducing us to customers who valued integrity over sensational publicity. Tom hired additional employees and expanded operations, using the business growth to create jobs and support local economic development. The company Dad had built continued growing and serving the community, proving that good work speaks louder than malicious gossip. Sarah graduated from her victim advocacy program with honors, earning recognition for her insights into emotional manipulation and recovery strategies. Her personal experience with Derek's betrayal had provided valuable perspective for helping other women recognize and escape similar situations. I couldn't have helped these women without understanding how manipulation works, she told me after her graduation ceremony. Derek's betrayal taught me things I couldn't have learned any other way. I'm grateful for the knowledge, even though the process was horrible. The ability to transform pain into useful knowledge marked Sarah's complete recovery from Derek's betrayal. She'd not only survived his manipulation but learned to help others avoid similar traps. My own life had stabilized into comfortable rhythms of work and family time. The nonprofit position allowed me to use our elder care experience to help other families navigate medical and financial challenges. Mom's situation had taught me about insurance complications, facility evaluations, and care coordination that proved valuable for other families facing similar decisions. The autumn leaves were turning colors again, marking 2 full years since Derek's betrayal had disrupted our peaceful family life. The anniversary passed without acknowledgement or anxiety, confirming that we'd moved beyond crisis into genuine recovery. Halloween brought trick-or-treaters to my neighborhood, children in costumes laughing and running between houses. The sound of normal family life felt precious after our period of public scrutiny and private pain. Privacy had been restored, and ordinary moments had regained their comfortable familiarity. Derek's prediction that our story would serve as a cautionary tale had proven accurate, though not in the way he'd intended. Our experience had taught us about the importance of protecting family privacy, recognizing manipulation, and distinguishing between people who love us and people who use us. The lessons were valuable, even though the teacher had been malicious. Thanksgiving approached with genuine gratitude for family relationships that had survived testing and emerged stronger. We'd learned to appreciate honest communication, consistent loyalty, and the rare gift of unconditional love. Derek's betrayal had highlighted the value of what we'd nearly lost. The holiday dinner was held at my house, around the same table where Derek had gathered intelligence for his media campaign. But the room felt different now, warmer and more secure. We'd reclaimed the space from his violation, filling it with genuine affection and careful trust. Sarah brought her new partner, introducing him gradually to family traditions and inside jokes. His respectful approach to our private information and patient building of trust demonstrated the difference between someone seeking to join a family and someone seeking to exploit it. Tom's wife and children filled the house with laughter and activity, normal family sounds that had been missing during our period of crisis. The construction business was thriving, providing stable employment and contributing to community development projects that honored Dad's memory. Mom joined us for dinner, transported from her care facility for the afternoon. Her memory problems meant she couldn't follow complex conversations, but she could sense the family's renewed stability and closeness. Her presence blessed our gathering with continuity and love. As we sat around the dinner table, sharing food and stories, I reflected on the journey from crisis to recovery. Derek's betrayal had been devastating and educational, teaching us about resilience, the importance of careful trust, and the difference between people who genuinely care about us and people who see us as opportunities for personal advantage. The lessons had been expensive but valuable, changing how we approached relationships and evaluated character in others. We'd learned to protect our privacy without becoming secretive, to trust carefully without becoming suspicious, and to value family loyalty as the rare and precious gift it truly is. Derek had disappeared from our lives completely, leaving behind only the knowledge he'd inadvertently provided about manipulation, betrayal, and recovery. His absence felt like relief rather than loss, confirming that some relationships are toxic enough to damage everyone they touch. But our family had not only survived Derek's betrayal but grown stronger through the experience. We'd learned to communicate more directly about difficult topics, to support each other through genuine crises, and to appreciate the people who demonstrate consistent loyalty over time. The candles on the dining room table flickered in the warm air, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Outside, early winter wind rustled through bare trees, creating the comfortable sounds of seasonal change. Inside, our family shared the gift of renewed trust and deeper understanding. Derek's manipulation had taught us that not everything is what it seems, that charm can mask selfish motives, and that family secrets are vulnerable to exploitation by people who understand their value. But we'd also learned that genuine love is resilient, that honest communication can overcome most obstacles, and that some betrayals ultimately strengthen rather than destroy the relationships they're intended to damage. As dinner ended and we cleared dishes together, moving around the kitchen in familiar patterns of cooperation, I felt grateful for the lessons Derek's betrayal had taught us. The knowledge had been painfully acquired but was proving valuable for recognizing and avoiding similar manipulations in the future. Sarah helped me load the dishwasher, working quietly beside me in the comfortable silence of shared experience. Her recovery from Derek's manipulation had been remarkable, transforming pain into wisdom and isolation into renewed connection with family and new romantic partnership. "Emma, I've been thinking about something," she said as we finished cleaning up. "Derek's betrayal was horrible, but it taught me things I needed to know. I'm actually grateful for the experience, even though I hated living through it." Her ability to find value in trauma marked complete healing from Derek's manipulation. She'd not only survived his betrayal but learned to help others avoid similar traps, transforming personal pain into public service. Tom gathered his family for the drive home, bundling children into coats and loading leftover food into containers. His leadership of the construction company had proven Dad's wisdom in trusting him with the business legacy. The media attention Derek had generated, intended to damage our reputation, had actually showcased the company's integrity and community commitment.
Same time next year? Tom asked as they prepared to leave. Maybe we'll actually have something normal to be thankful for.
His joke acknowledged our shared understanding that normal family life is a blessing worth protecting from people who would exploit it for personal gain. We'd learned to value ordinary moments and private conversations as gifts that could be stolen by those who understood their worth. Mom dozed during the drive back to her care facility, exhausted by the afternoon's activity but content with family connection. Her room would smell like turkey and pumpkin pie for days, carrying sensory memories of the gathering even after details faded from her compromised memory. After everyone left, I sat in my quiet living room, watching late afternoon light fade through the windows. The house felt peaceful in ways it hadn't achieved during Derek's presence in our lives. His absence allowed genuine family relationships to flourish without the distortion of his manipulation. The television remained off, a conscious choice to avoid the media that had once invaded our privacy so completely. We'd learned to value silence and solitude as forms of protection, creating spaces where private thoughts could remain genuinely private. My phone buzzed with messages from family members, thank you notes, and expressions of gratitude for the day's gathering. The easy communication marked our recovery from the period when every conversation had been guarded and every gathering had felt potentially dangerous. Derek's betrayal had taught us that trust is both fragile and resilient, easily broken by selfish motives but capable of growing stronger when tested by external pressure. We'd learned to distinguish between people who genuinely care about us and people who see us as sources of entertainment or profit. The construction company's success, Sarah's new career helping other women, Mom's improved care, and our family's renewed closeness all represented positive outcomes from Derek's negative actions. His manipulation had inadvertently forced us to strengthen our bonds and clarify our values. Winter settled over the city, bringing shorter days and colder temperatures. But this winter felt different from the harsh season when Derek's betrayal had first been revealed. We developed better coping strategies, stronger support systems, and clearer understanding of what truly mattered in family relationships. The snow that began falling on the first day of December looked beautiful rather than threatening, covering the world in clean whiteness that promised fresh starts and new beginnings. We'd learned to see seasonal changes as opportunities for growth rather than reminders of past difficulties. Christmas shopping became an exercise in appreciation for people who demonstrated genuine loyalty during our crisis. The gifts we chose reflected gratitude for honest friends, supportive colleagues, and family members who'd stood by us when standing by us required courage and commitment. Derek's name appeared occasionally in local news, usually in negative contexts related to his professional failures or legal difficulties stemming from his unethical behavior. But these mentions felt like distant weather reports, information about events that didn't affect our daily lives. Sarah's engagement announcement came just before Christmas, news that filled our family with joy and hope for the future. Her partner had proposed during a quiet evening at home, offering a ring that symbolized patient love rather than manipulative charm. The contrast with Derek's flashy courtship couldn't have been more obvious or welcome. He asked me to marry him while we were doing dishes together, Sarah told me, laughing at the domestic setting of such an important moment. He said he wanted to propose during an ordinary moment because ordinary moments with me felt extraordinary. The simplicity and honesty of the proposal represented everything Derek's manipulation had lacked: genuine affection, respect for Sarah's feelings, and understanding that love grows through shared experiences rather than dramatic gestures designed to impress and manipulate. The engagement party was held at Tom's apartment, a small gathering of people who'd supported our family through the difficult period following Derek's betrayal. The guest list represented tested loyalty and proven friendship, relationships that had survived crisis and emerged stronger. Derek's absence from the celebration felt natural rather than noteworthy. He'd removed himself from our lives so completely that his exclusion required no explanation or justification. The party was better without him, more honest and relaxed. Sarah's happiness was obvious and unforced, the kind of contentment that comes from making wise choices and learning from past mistakes. Her experience with Derek's manipulation had taught her to recognize authentic affection and avoid people who seemed too interested in private information or personal drama. The new year approached with optimism and realistic expectations. We'd learned that happiness isn't the absence of problems but the presence of people who genuinely care about our welfare. Derek's betrayal had taught us to value such people as the rare treasures they truly are.
The construction company entered its new fiscal year with expanded operations and strong community relationships.
The media attention Derek had generated, intended to damage our reputation, had actually introduced our business to clients who valued integrity over sensational publicity. Sarah's wedding planning proceeded with careful attention to creating a celebration that reflected her values and preferences rather than trying to impress people or generate social media content.
The contrast with Derek's manipulative approach to relationship milestones couldn't have been more obvious.
Mom's condition remained stable at the care facility, surrounded by medical support and engaging activities that provided better quality of life than her previous placement. The forced move, traumatic when it occurred, had resulted in improved care and more appropriate services. The spring following Derek's betrayal brought early flowers and warmer temperatures, seasonal changes that felt symbolic of our family's renewal and growth. We'd weathered the crisis and emerged with stronger relationships and clearer understanding of what truly mattered. Derek's prediction that transparency would help our family heal had proven accurate, though not in the way he'd intended. The forced honesty about our financial struggles and personal challenges had eliminated the polite pretenses that had sometimes created distance between us. The construction company won another major contract, this one to build a senior living facility that would provide care for elderly residents. The project felt personally meaningful given our experience with Mom's needs and the challenges of finding appropriate care options. Sarah's victim advocacy work continued expanding, helping women recognize emotional manipulation and develop strategies for safe escape from abusive relationships. Her personal experience with Derek's systematic deception provided valuable insights for identifying similar patterns before they caused irreparable damage. I tell them to watch for people who ask too many questions about private family matters, Sarah explained during one of our coffee conversations. Derek taught me that manipulators always want more information than genuine friends need. Her ability to transform Derek's betrayal into protective knowledge for other women represented complete recovery from his manipulation. She'd not only survived his deception but learned to help others avoid similar traps. Summer brought the construction company's 41st anniversary celebration, marking another year of community service and quality workmanship. The media coverage was positive, focusing on ongoing projects and contributions to local economic development. Tom's leadership of the business had proven Dad's wisdom in trusting him with the company legacy. The expansion into sustainable building practices and community development projects honored Dad's memory while adapting to changing industry standards. The anniversary of Derek's first media appearance passed without acknowledgement or anxiety, confirming that we'd moved beyond crisis into genuine recovery. His betrayal had become historical fact rather than current pain, something that had happened to us rather than something still affecting our daily lives. Sarah's wedding took place on a perfect September afternoon, surrounded by people who'd supported her through the difficult period following Derek's betrayal. The ceremony was simple and honest, reflecting her values and the lessons she'd learned about authentic love versus manipulative charm. Her new husband's vows promised partnership and respect rather than dramatic declarations designed to impress observers. The contrast with Derek's flashy romantic gestures couldn't have been more obvious or welcome. Sarah had learned to value substance over style in all her relationships. The reception was held in Tom's expanded warehouse space, decorated with flowers from Dad's favorite garden center and food prepared by local businesses that had worked with the construction company. The celebration honored both Sarah's new beginning and our family's renewal after crisis. Derek's absence from the wedding felt like blessing rather than loss. His manipulation had nearly destroyed Sarah's ability to trust romantic partners, but his betrayal had also taught her to recognize authentic affection and avoid people who seemed too interested in exploiting personal information. Mom attended the wedding in her wheelchair, wearing a dress Sarah had chosen in her favorite color. Her memory problems meant she couldn't follow the ceremony details, but she could sense the family's joy and stability. Her presence blessed the celebration with continuity and love. As autumn returned again, marking 3 full years since Derek's betrayal had first disrupted our peaceful family life, I reflected on the journey from crisis to recovery. The lessons had been painfully acquired but proved valuable for recognizing and avoiding similar manipulations in the future. The construction company continued growing and serving the community, proving that good work speaks louder than malicious gossip.
Derek's attempt to damage our reputation had backfired completely, introducing us to customers who valued integrity over sensational publicity.
Sarah's marriage was thriving, built on honest communication and mutual respect rather than manipulative tactics and exploitation of private information.
Her husband understood that loving someone means protecting their privacy rather than selling their secrets. Tom's family provided the next generation with examples of ethical business practices and genuine family loyalty.
His children were learning that trust is both precious and fragile, easily broken by selfish motives but capable of growing stronger when tested by external pressure. Mom's care remained stable and appropriate, surrounded by medical support and engaging activities that provided quality of life despite her progressive condition. The crisis Derek had created by exposing our private struggles had ultimately led to better care options and more comprehensive support services. My own life had found comfortable rhythms of work and family time, using our elder care experience to help other families navigate similar challenges. The nonprofit position allowed me to transform our painful lessons into practical assistance for people facing comparable difficulties. Derek had disappeared from public view completely, his media connections apparently unwilling to associate with someone whose credibility had been so thoroughly destroyed. His marketing career was finished, his reputation permanently damaged by his willingness to exploit family trust for personal gain. But Derek's disappearance didn't erase the positive changes his betrayal had inadvertently created in our family dynamics. We'd learned to be more direct about difficulties, more protective of sensitive information, and more appreciative of people who demonstrated consistent loyalty over time. The holiday season approached with genuine gratitude for relationships that had survived testing and emerged stronger. We'd learned to value honest communication, consistent loyalty, and the rare gift of unconditional love that Derek's manipulation had tried to exploit and destroy. Thanksgiving dinner was held at Sarah's new home, the first holiday celebration in the space she shared with her husband. The house felt warm and welcoming, decorated with family photographs and mementos that represented genuine love rather than manipulative nostalgia. Tom brought his growing family, their children now old enough to understand that Aunt Sarah had overcome difficult challenges and found happiness with someone who treated her with respect and kindness. The contrast with Derek's manipulative behavior provided valuable lessons about healthy relationships. Mom joined us again, transported from her care facility for the afternoon. Her presence connected us to Dad's memory and reminded us that family loyalty transcends individual difficulties and external pressures. Derek's betrayal had threatened to fragment our relationships, but Mom's unconditional love had helped hold us together. As we sat around Sarah's dining room table, sharing food and stories, I felt grateful for the journey from crisis to recovery. Derek's betrayal had been devastating and educational simultaneously, teaching us about resilience, the importance of careful trust, and the difference between people who genuinely care about us and people who see us as opportunities for personal advantage. The lessons had been expensive but valuable, changing how we approached relationships and evaluated character in others. We'd learned to protect our privacy without becoming secretive, to trust carefully without becoming suspicious, and to value family loyalty as the rare and precious gift it truly is. Derek's absence from our celebration felt like relief rather than loss, confirming that some relationships are toxic enough to damage everyone they touch. But our family had not only survived his betrayal but grown stronger through the experience, learning to communicate more directly about difficult topics and support each other through genuine crises. The candles on Sarah's dining room table flickered in the warm air, casting dancing shadows on unfamiliar walls that were already becoming home. Outside, early winter wind rustled through bare trees, creating the comfortable sounds of seasonal change and continuity. Inside, our family shared the gift of renewed trust and deeper understanding, appreciating the people who demonstrated consistent loyalty during our most vulnerable period. Derek's manipulation had taught us that not everything is what it seems, but it had also revealed the enduring strength of genuine family love. As the evening ended and we prepared to return Mom to her care facility, I reflected on how completely our lives had changed since Derek's betrayal first appeared on morning television. The crisis had been painful and disruptive, but it had also forced us to examine our relationships and priorities in ways that ultimately strengthened our family bonds. Sarah walked me to my car, moving with the confident grace of someone who'd overcome significant challenges and emerged stronger.
Her recovery from Derek's manipulation had been remarkable, transforming pain into wisdom and isolation into renewed connection with family and authentic romantic partnership.
"Emma, I keep thinking about something," she said as we stood in her driveway under stars that seemed brighter in the clear winter air. "Derek's betrayal was the worst thing that happened to me, but it was also necessary. I wouldn't have learned to recognize manipulation without experiencing it firsthand." Her ability to find value in trauma marked complete healing from Derek's deception. She'd not only survived his betrayal but learned to help others avoid similar traps, transforming personal pain into public service that honored both her experience and our family's ultimate resilience. The drive home took me through neighborhoods decorated for the approaching holiday season, houses glowing with warm light and families gathered around dinner tables. The ordinary scenes of domestic happiness felt precious after our period of public scrutiny and private pain. Derek's betrayal had taught us to value privacy as protection rather than secrecy, to appreciate the gift of ordinary moments shared with people who genuinely care about our welfare. His manipulation had been intended to destroy our family unity, but it had ultimately revealed the depth of our love and loyalty for each other. Back in my own house, I sat in the quiet living room where Derek had once played with my children while gathering intelligence for his media campaign. But the space felt reclaimed now, filled with genuine memories rather than violations of trust. We'd learned to separate the good times from the manipulation, keeping what was real while discarding what had been calculated deception. The newspaper Derek had used to publish our private information now carried stories about other families, other crises, other betrayals. Public attention is fleeting, but the lessons learned from surviving it can last a lifetime. We gained knowledge about trust, manipulation, and recovery that would protect us from future predators. My phone buzzed with goodnight messages from family members, easy communications that marked our complete recovery from the period when every conversation had been guarded and every gathering had felt potentially dangerous. Derek's absence had allowed genuine relationships to flourish without the distortion of his systematic manipulation. The winter that settled over our city felt peaceful rather than harsh, bringing shorter days and colder temperatures that invited reflection and appreciation for warm homes and loving families. We'd learned that happiness isn't the absence of problems but the presence of people who genuinely care about our welfare during both good times and difficult periods. Derek's prediction that our story would serve as a cautionary tale had proven accurate, though not in the way he'd intended. Our experience had taught other families about the importance of protecting private information, recognizing emotional manipulation, and distinguishing between people who love them and people who see them as opportunities for exploitation. The construction company continued its expansion into sustainable building practices and community development projects, honoring Dad's memory while adapting to changing industry standards. The media attention Derek had generated, intended to damage our reputation, had actually showcased our integrity and commitment to ethical business practices. Sarah's victim advocacy work was gaining recognition from domestic violence organizations across the state, her insights into emotional manipulation providing valuable training materials for counselors and law enforcement officers. Derek's systematic deception had inadvertently prepared her to help other women recognize and escape similar situations. Tom's leadership of the family business had proven Dad's wisdom in trusting him with the company legacy. The contracts won during the period of media attention had led to ongoing relationships with clients who valued quality work over sensational publicity, proving that character ultimately matters more than temporary reputation damage. Mom's condition remained stable at the care facility, surrounded by medical support and engaging activities that provided better quality of life than her previous placement. The forced move, traumatic when it occurred, had resulted in improved care and more appropriate services for her progressive condition. As spring approached again, marking 4 full years since Derek's betrayal had first disrupted our peaceful family life, I felt grateful for the complete recovery our family had achieved. The crisis had been painful and disruptive, but it had also taught us valuable lessons about trust, loyalty, and the difference between genuine relationships and manipulative exploitation. The anniversary of Derek's first media appearance passed without acknowledgement or anxiety, confirming that we'd moved completely beyond crisis into genuine healing and growth. His betrayal had become historical fact rather than current pain, something that had happened to us rather than something still affecting our daily decisions and relationships. Derek himself had faded from our consciousness so completely that his name rarely came up in family conversations anymore. His manipulation had been devastating at the time, but his absence had allowed space for authentic relationships to develop and flourish without the constant threat of exploitation. The lessons Derek's betrayal had taught us remained valuable and permanent: trust carefully, communicate directly, and value privacy as a form of protection rather than secrecy.
We'd learned to recognize manipulation tactics and avoid people who seemed too interested in private family information or personal drama.
Sarah's marriage continued thriving, built on honest communication and mutual respect rather than the manipulative tactics Derek had employed during their relationship. Her husband understood that loving someone means protecting their privacy and supporting their family relationships rather than exploiting them for personal gain. The construction company celebrated another successful year of community service and quality workmanship, proving that ethical business practices and genuine integrity ultimately matter more than temporary publicity or reputation damage. Dad's legacy lived on through the work Tom continued and the values the company maintained. My own work with the nonprofit organization continued expanding, helping families navigate elder care challenges and protect themselves from financial exploitation during vulnerable periods. Our experience with Derek's betrayal had provided valuable insights into recognizing and preventing similar manipulations of family trust. As I reflected on the journey from Derek's initial betrayal to our complete recovery, I felt amazed by our family's resilience and capacity for growth through adversity. The crisis had been painful and disruptive, but it had also revealed the depth of our love and loyalty for each other. Derek's manipulation had been intended to destroy our family unity and profit from our private pain, but it had ultimately strengthened our bonds and clarified our values. We'd learned to communicate more directly about difficult topics, support each other through genuine crises, and appreciate the rare gift of unconditional family love. The summer brought new opportunities for the construction company, including a contract to build affordable housing for seniors that would provide appropriate care options for elderly residents. The project felt personally meaningful given our experience with Mom's needs and the importance of finding suitable living arrangements for aging family members. Sarah announced her pregnancy during a family barbecue at Tom's expanded warehouse space, news that filled us with joy and hope for the future. The timing felt significant, marking not just personal happiness but the complete renewal of our family's optimism and confidence in the future.
Derek tried to destroy our family's future, Sarah said as we celebrated her announcement.
But instead, he just cleared the way for something better. This baby will grow up knowing the difference between people who genuinely love them and people who pretend to care while planning exploitation. Her words captured the essential lesson Derek's betrayal had taught us, that some relationships are toxic enough to damage everyone they touch, but genuine family love is resilient enough to survive manipulation and emerge stronger. We'd learned to value what we'd nearly lost and protect it more carefully in the future.
The autumn following Sarah's pregnancy announcement brought comfortable rhythms of preparation and anticipation.
Her husband was already proving himself to be a devoted partner and future father, demonstrating the kind of authentic commitment Derek had only pretended to offer.
Derek's absence from these celebrations felt natural rather than noteworthy. He'd removed himself from our lives so completely that his exclusion required no explanation or justification.
Our family gatherings were better without him, more honest and relaxed and focused on genuine connection rather than performance for someone who might exploit private information. Mom's delight in the pregnancy news was evident despite her memory problems, her face lighting up whenever Sarah mentioned the baby. The prospect of new life brought hope and continuity to a family that had weathered significant storms and emerged with renewed appreciation for love and loyalty. The construction company's success continued expanding, providing stable employment and contributing to community development projects that honored Dad's memory while serving current needs. The media attention Derek had generated, intended to damage our reputation, had actually introduced our business to clients who valued integrity over sensational publicity. As winter settled over our city again, bringing the familiar rhythms of shorter days and colder temperatures, I felt grateful for the journey our family had traveled from crisis to complete recovery. Derek's betrayal had been devastating at the time, but surviving it had taught us valuable lessons about trust, resilience, and the enduring power of genuine family relationships. The holiday season approached with anticipation for Sarah's first Christmas as an expectant mother, a celebration that would mark both personal joy and family renewal. We'd learned to value such moments as precious gifts that must be protected from people who would exploit them for personal advantage.
Derek's prediction that transparency would help our family heal had proven accurate, though not in the way he'd intended.
The forced honesty about our struggles and challenges had eliminated pretenses and brought us closer together, creating stronger bonds than we'd possessed before. His manipulation revealed the importance of trust and loyalty. Christmas morning brought the joy of family gathering without the anxiety that had marked previous holiday seasons during our period of crisis and recovery. Sarah's pregnancy added excitement and hope to the celebration, representing both personal happiness and family continuity despite the challenges we'd overcome. The gifts we exchanged reflected gratitude for people who demonstrated genuine loyalty during our most difficult period, relationships that had survived testing and emerged stronger. We'd learned to value such connections as rare treasures that must be carefully protected and appreciated. Mom's participation in the celebration was limited by her progressive condition, but her presence connected us to Dad's memory and reminded us that family love transcends individual difficulties and external pressures. Derek's betrayal had threatened to fragment our relationships, but Mom's unconditional love had helped hold us together during the worst periods. As the new year approached, marking 5 full years since Derek's betrayal had first disrupted our peaceful family life, I felt amazed by the complete transformation our family had achieved. The crisis had been painful and disruptive, but it had also revealed our capacity for resilience, growth, and renewal through adversity. Derek's manipulation had been intended to exploit our vulnerabilities and profit from our private pain, but it had ultimately taught us to recognize such tactics and protect ourselves from future predators. We'd learned valuable lessons about trust, communication, and the difference between people who genuinely care about us and people who see us as opportunities for personal gain.
Sarah's baby was born on a warm spring morning, surrounded by family members who understood the significance of new life after a period of loss and recovery. The delivery was smooth and uncomplicated, a peaceful beginning for a child who would grow up in a family that had learned to value loyalty and protect privacy. Derek's absence from this celebration was so complete that his exclusion felt natural rather than deliberate. He'd removed himself from our lives so thoroughly that new family members would grow up without any knowledge of his manipulation or the crisis he'd created. The baby would know only the strong, united family that had emerged from surviving his betrayal. The construction company won its largest contract ever, a mixed-use development that would provide both commercial space and affordable housing for working families. The project represented the culmination of years of reputation building and community service that had overcome the temporary damage Derek's manipulation had attempted to create. Tom's leadership of the business had proven Dad's wisdom in trusting him with the company legacy. The expansion into sustainable building practices and community development projects honored Dad's memory while adapting to changing industry standards and serving current community needs. Sarah's victim advocacy work continued expanding, her insights into emotional manipulation providing valuable training materials for counselors, law enforcement officers, and social service providers across multiple states. Derek's systematic deception had inadvertently prepared her to help thousands of other women recognize and escape similar situations. My own work with the nonprofit organization had grown into a leadership position, coordinating services for families facing elder care challenges and financial exploitation during vulnerable periods. Our experience with Derek's betrayal had provided valuable insights into recognizing and preventing similar manipulations of family trust. As summer brought the baby's first family barbecue at Tom's warehouse space, now expanded to accommodate growing family gatherings, I reflected on the complete transformation Derek's betrayal had ultimately created in our lives. The crisis had been devastating at the time, but surviving it had revealed strengths we hadn't known we possessed. The lessons Derek's manipulation had taught us remained valuable and permanent: trust carefully, communicate directly, value privacy as protection rather than secrecy, and appreciate the rare gift of unconditional family love. We'd learned to recognize manipulation tactics and avoid people who seemed too interested in exploiting personal information for their own advantage. Derek himself had faded from our consciousness so completely that his name rarely came up in conversation anymore. His betrayal had become historical fact rather than current pain, something that had happened to us rather than something still affecting our daily decisions and relationships.
But the positive changes his manipulation had inadvertently created in our family dynamics remained permanent and valuable. We'd learned to be more direct about difficulties, more protective of sensitive information, and more appreciative of people who demonstrated consistent loyalty over time. Sarah's marriage continued thriving, built on honest communication and mutual respect rather than the manipulative tactics Derek had employed during their relationship. Her husband understood that loving someone means protecting their privacy and supporting their family relationships rather than exploiting them for personal gain. The baby's christening took place on a perfect autumn afternoon, surrounded by people who'd supported our family through the difficult period following Derek's betrayal and celebrated our complete recovery. The ceremony was simple and honest, reflecting our values and the lessons we'd learned about authentic love versus manipulative charm. Derek's absence from this celebration felt like blessing rather than loss. His manipulation had nearly destroyed our ability to trust new people joining our family, but his betrayal had also taught us to recognize authentic commitment and avoid individuals who seemed too interested in exploiting personal relationships. Mom's participation in the christening was limited by her progressive condition, but her presence blessed the celebration with continuity and love. Her memory problems meant she couldn't follow ceremony details, but she could sense the family's joy and stability, understanding that new life represented hope and renewal. As winter approached again, bringing the familiar rhythms of shorter days and colder temperatures, I felt grateful for the complete healing our family had achieved. Derek's betrayal had been intended to destroy our unity and profit from our private pain, but it had ultimately strengthened our bonds and clarified our values. The construction company's expansion continued, providing stable employment and contributing to community development projects that served both economic and social needs. The media attention Derek had generated, intended to damage our reputation, had actually showcased our integrity and commitment to ethical business practices. Sarah's advocacy for domestic violence victims was gaining national recognition, her personal experience with emotional manipulation providing valuable insights for prevention and recovery programs. Derek's systematic deception had inadvertently prepared her to help thousands of other women recognize and escape similar situations. The holiday season brought the baby's first Christmas, a celebration that felt symbolic of our family's complete renewal and recovery from the crisis Derek's betrayal had created. We'd learned to value such moments as precious gifts that must be protected from people who would exploit them for personal advantage. As the year ended, marking 6 full years since Derek's manipulation had first disrupted our peaceful family life, I reflected on the extraordinary journey from crisis to complete healing and growth. The experience had been painful and disruptive, but it had also revealed our capacity for resilience, renewal, and transformation through adversity. Derek's betrayal had taught us that not everything is what it seems, that charm can mask selfish motives, and that family secrets are vulnerable to exploitation by people who understand their value. But we'd also learned that genuine love is resilient, that honest communication can overcome most obstacles, and that some betrayals ultimately strengthen rather than destroy the relationships they're intended to damage. The baby's first steps took place in Sarah's living room, surrounded by family members who understood the significance of forward movement after a period of crisis and recovery. The child would grow up in a family that had learned to value loyalty and protect privacy, understanding the difference between people who genuinely care and people who pretend to love while planning exploitation. Derek's name had become so irrelevant to our daily lives that the baby would grow up without any knowledge of his manipulation or the crisis he'd created. Our family's strength and unity were now so complete that past betrayals felt like distant historical events rather than current concerns or ongoing vulnerabilities. The construction company celebrated another record year of community service and quality workmanship, proving that ethical business practices and genuine integrity ultimately matter more than temporary publicity or reputation damage. Dad's legacy lived on through the work Tom continued and the values the company maintained in serving community needs. As spring returned again, bringing early flowers and warmer temperatures that felt symbolic of renewal and growth, I felt amazed by our family's complete transformation since Derek's betrayal had first appeared on morning television. The crisis had been devastating at the time, but surviving it had revealed strengths and values we'd taken for granted before being forced to defend them. The lessons Derek's manipulation had taught us remained valuable and permanent, protecting us from future predators while allowing us to appreciate genuine relationships more deeply than before his betrayal revealed their precious rarity. We'd learned to trust carefully while remaining open to authentic connection, a balance that required constant attention but provided lasting security.
Sarah's second pregnancy was announced during the baby's first birthday celebration, news that filled our family with joy and confidence in the future. The timing felt perfect, representing not just personal happiness but complete family renewal and optimism about what lay ahead. "Derek tried to destroy our family's future," Sarah said as we celebrated both announcements. "Instead, he just cleared the way for something better."
These children will grow up knowing the difference between genuine love and manipulative charm, between people who protect family privacy and people who exploit it for personal gain. Her words captured the essential transformation Derek's betrayal had ultimately created in our lives. The crisis had been painful and disruptive, but it had also taught us to recognize manipulation tactics, value authentic relationships, and protect the precious gift of unconditional family love that had ultimately proven stronger than any attempt to destroy it.